What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more acid trance, and we're back with the one and only Pablo Gargano, another one of his masterpieces from the 90s on Eve Records. I did want to start by giving a shout out to all the acid trance people out there, including old school friend of the channel, Karsten, been commenting on DJ mixes I did before I ever did any reactions at all. So yeah, shout out to you, shout out to Tassos, talked to him about tunes a lot. We were just talking recently, and he was saying that he loves acid techno, but you know, if you really had to pick one, it would be acid trance because of the sort of, you know, the atmosphere and the creativity of the genre. And I completely agree. This is acid techno street, make no mistake. But acid trance forever is a phrase I feel perhaps even more strongly. So I basically agree. And shout out to Kim, friend of the channel, and also has come to comment on not only acid trance reactions, but Sybient reactions and so on. Originally started commenting on the Tears for Fears reactions, giving me a lot of information and sort of background on that group and other groups as well. So yeah, shout out to Kim and all the acid trance people out there. I really do appreciate you. But yeah, we're going to Eve 17. This was one of the first Pablo Gargano tunes I ever heard. The tune is called The Runner. There's two different versions of it. We're going to listen to the trance mix. I'm trying to remember the name of the other mix, and once again, Eve Records from this period, it doesn't say anything on the record as to the name of the track or the title. Yeah, so the other mix is called the Energy mix, and Energy, you know, it was sort of like the early stages of what would become hard house. It was, you know, it grew out of the hard trance scene, but you know, it had a slightly different flavor, and by the turn of the millennium, it would become more of its own genre. But yeah, so, oh, and there's also Introscope is the B2 track. So they're all cool tunes. I mean, honestly, Pablo pretty much didn't make an uninteresting tune during like a 3 or 4 year period whatsoever. But yeah, I think the best version of the two versions of The Runner is the trance mix. And indeed, there was a mixtape, I've talked about this in a couple reactions. You know, my older brother got me into trance music and sort of took me to my first rave parties. And eventually, you know, I sort of keyed in on the acid sound in the Goa trance tracks that I was listening to. But one of the first tapes he gave me, it was a mixtape with like progressive melodic trance on one side, mixed by DJ Huggy, Hector Merida, a DJ who, you know, he's spent time in different places, but, you know, Southern California is where he's been for much of his sort of DJ career. I've met him, friends with him on Facebook and so on, but at the time it was just a mixtape that my brother gave me, and one of the tracks on that mix was the trance mix of The Runner by Pablo Gargano. Now, the tape that I got, it didn't come with a track list, so it took me a while to figure out, and again, even once I figured out what record it was still like, I don't know who made the tune or what it's called. But yeah, bottom line, this was one of the tracks from that tape that really stood out to me. And it was one of the tracks where I was like, man, you know, this trance music is fantastic. You know, I've been going to punk shows for a couple years, and, you know, I never stopped listening to punk or hip-hop or reggae or anything else, but this track is one of a handful of tunes that got me into trance music, which eventually led me to acid music, which eventually led me to pursue that sound in a number of different genres. So yeah, this is one of the tunes that's, you know, sort of instrumental in my personal history of gravitating toward acid trance music and electronic music more generally. So big ups to DJ Huggy, big ups to Pablo Gargano, let's get it. The year is 1997, this is Eve Records number 17. The tune is The Runner, and this is the trance mix by the one and only Pablo Gargano. Can definitely use it as a set opener. That being said, it gets going quickly, so you could do a hard beat mix in. Obviously the sort of like back and forth pulse of that main layer, sort of like buzzing swing back and forth between both of your ears. It's like a breathtaking melody. It's kind of like, it captures your attention. You're sort of like transfixed by it. Sort of like rainy day vibes. Like a rhythmic, clattery, percussive element. Kick is nice. It's like powerful, but it's like cushion. Oh, get out of here. This is like almost like entering acid-trance territory with this melody. Feels like this could be Man with No Name. Like the 16-year-old me, like, where can I hear more of this kind of stuff? Which led me to seek out like CD releases, because I only had a couple mixtapes. And through those CD releases, I found out more about acid trance and acid techno, and the rest is history. But this one, again, it was one of the very first. I feel like it's the soundtrack to some like fantasy narrative. Sweeping sort of string pad or synth. Right here, the bass line is standing out more than at any point in the rest of the track. Back to that kind of buzzing. Love that sort of psi-flavored melody. It's very out under the full moon at some desert or forest party. You know, like again, it felt like it was stripping down and it was about to end. No. Like one more articulation of the melodic atmosphere. bello to the maestro. Honestly, it's just another fantastic tune, and you know, a really special one. So yeah, I was thinking about it. I guess the mixtape had to have been '97, but it's funny because I know I had it before I went to a party in February of '97 that was like a real game changer. It was like, you know, I went to it being like a punk rock kid. It was sort of like, yeah, I'm interested to check it out. You know, I've heard some of this music and whatever. And by the time I left there, it was like, oh my God, like, you know, there's a world awaiting me. But I guess that would have been, it means I had to have gotten the tape like January of '97, I guess. I don't know when this record came out, but again, I had that tape like before I went to that party, which I think was in February of '97. So, yeah, it seems like there's a very narrow window during which I would have had to have gotten this tape, regardless, or the tape with this track on it. Regardless, it's another masterpiece from Pablo. What amazes me is not only are his melodies atmospheric and emotional, not only does he know how to use acid just oh so well, although fair to say, this tune, it didn't stand out so much. There was like, you know, a couple like background layers that were like, you know, scarcely discernible, but so it wasn't the biggest example of that, but obviously he is an acid trance master in terms of his use of the 303. His kick drums are always powerful and driving, although again, it was like, there was force, but it was sort of cushioned, it was soft, it wasn't like, you know, like grating on the brain, which, you know, sometimes that's fine too, but yeah, it was just a really nice place for the kick drum, but it's ultimately his eccentric and like idiosyncratic composition, just the way he'll bring in a layer after an 8 instead of after a 32 or a 64, or it'd be more likely, or he'll bring it in after an 8, take it out for the next 8, and then bring it in for the final 16 of that 32. Like, he just has this really like eccentric and unique sense of like rhythm and timing. It's all within the larger structure, but it's like, it's not just like straight, you know, bar, bar, measure, measure, where it's like everything's sort of predictable. He does things that are, you know, unexpected, but still, as I said, within the larger rhythmic structure. So once again, shout out to all the acid trance people out there. Shout out to Pablo Gargano, you know, a maestro in the truest sense of the word. Pretty soon I'm going to react to a tune that, shout out to Tassos, brought it to my attention. I knew that Pablo made a like house, you know, kind of tech house track in 2019, and I was like, oh wow, he's, even if it's not really, you know, a style that I pursue much, that's great that he's making tunes again. Well, Tassos showed me in 2020 he made a track that is basically acid trance in his old style, maybe like a hair slower than a lot of the Eve classics, including this one here. Not much though. It's basically like old style, if again slight, like 5% like slower in terms of tempo and like intensity, but it's got acid, it's got melody, it's got great structure and progression. So we're gonna get to that one soon. Do let me know what you think of this one. Other than that, I will see you next time. Peace.